Good afternoon, clergy and laity of the Texas Annual Conference. It's such a joy to gather with you in this virtual space as we prepare for the 2025 session of Annual Conference. Please know that many have prayed and worked and planned for a session that will help us connect with God and with one another in order to strengthen our connection and our witness in our communities and the world. I am grateful for all of the work that has gone into planning our meeting for today and for those who will be assisting us in various ways. Let me tell you of the few people who will be helping us today. Our communication team this afternoon is Troy Griffin, our Associate Director of Media for the conference, Kelsey Johnson, who has been a communication consultant for us for the last several months, and Ben Burnside, our Associate Director for the Center of Leadership Vitality. They've created the videos, the music, the slides, and will assist with technology this afternoon. Kip Giltz, Melissa Mayer, and Robert Besser will staff our Q&A feature where you may post questions for presenters. Those questions will be answered in the Q&A feature unless it's determined that a verbal answer would be best. Robin Rodriguez will staff our chat feature where she'll post helpful and important information to complement the presentations. And Kali Enox is here to troubleshoot any connection problems that arise and then all the other problems that may arise that she helps with that we're so grateful for. We're also grateful for all of the presenters who have worked on various teams and committees and have written reports to reflect their work and help lead us as a conference in fulfilling our calling as United Methodist disciples in the Texas Annual Conference. Again, thank you for being here. And now let us hear a word from our bishop, Bishop Cynthia Fierro Harvey. Bishop Harvey's letter of welcome can be found on page 2 of your PCJ, of your pre-conference journal. Bishop Harvey?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for gathering today. I know that most of you have already had a very long day, and there's still hours remaining and work to do. So thank you for making time for this pre-conference gathering. We'll be very mindful of your time, and I hope that when we finish this afternoon, that you will be glad that you were here and that you will feel more prepared for Annual Conference 2025 and that you're ready to take away some great new ideas, dreams, and a renewed hope and vision that will reinvigorate your day today ministry, not only this afternoon, but also throughout our annual conference as we gain greater clarity about who we are and who are we becoming, become bold witnesses of the gospel of Jesus Christ, experience the abundance of God's grace, the gift of kinship, and the extraordinary joy in all that we do. We will be back at the Hilton, as some of you already know, but just as a reminder, on Memorial Day weekend, as we begin our time of Holy Conferencing on Sunday, May 25th, and conclude my hope and prayers that by noon on May the 28th on Wednesday. We have two great presenters, Claire Bowen and Celeste Eubanks. They both serve at the Candler School of Theology's Center for Christian Leadership. Will be introduced to the three practice circles, which is an engaging and interactive approach to fostering vital conversations. Through their keynote and breakout sessions, we'll learn practical ways to listen deeply, speak openly, and build understanding, skills that will strengthen our ministries and really help us thrive. Both Claire and Celeste are committed United Methodists. Claire is a laywoman that is a member of Peachtree Road United Methodist Church in Atlanta, and Celeste is an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church. They both believe that having important and often really hard conversations will invigorate our congregations, our communities, and all of us at the same time. You'll hear more today about the three practice circles and certainly learn a lot more about it at annual conference and certainly the days to come. We'll enter into our time together with a shared purpose at annual conference to be reinvigorated, renewing our mission, reviving our spirits, and rekindling our call to thriving congregations and thriving communities. This year's theme, if you haven't already figured it out, is reinvigorate. And it aligns with our Thrive vision, calling us to clarify our mission, abundance in our faith, kinship with one another, and a bold witness, and deep joy as we journey together. Today, you'll get a highlight view of some of these key issues that we will be considering, all the things that you have to do at annual conference, which includes passing a budget, hearing the trustee report and nominations. And also we'll hear about our constitutional amendments that we'll vote on. And of course, some of the exciting and thriving communities or ministries, of the Texas Conference. We will sit at round tables again, which I love this possibility of really seeing one another and having conversation across the table. We'll experience beautiful worship, including ordination at the historic First United Methodist Church in downtown Houston. Now, what's interesting now is that we're doing some collaborative work with the Rio, Texas Conference, and the Rio, Texas Cabinet and other leaders will also be with us. Some will serve as facilitators, or here in a moment, referees for the 3 practice circles in both conferences. And then a few weeks later, in the Rio, Texas Conference, the Texas Conference Cabinet and other key leaders will participate and facilitate and referee the 3 practice circles in the Rio, Texas Conference. So we're learning a little bit more about one another and how we might actually help one another in ministry. I am so thankful for your courageous and bold leadership throughout the conference. This morning, I had the privilege of being in Woodville as they consecrated a new building. I'm reminded of these stories that are told over and over again in this annual conference of churches and congregations, especially laity, who are doing some courageous work. This church didn't exist 2 years ago. This church is now in a building and celebrating their ministry in that community and making a really big difference. As the good preacher this morning said, Melissa Mayer said that Woodville may not have needed another church, but they needed you. They needed the people in Woodville. And I would say that's true for all of us in this annual conference. We may not need another church in another community, but what we do need is you. We need good, faithful, united Methodists who are courageous and bold and are willing to be a witness of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I hear your stories over and over and how we're cracking the code of vitality. And I'll tell you, I just came back from the Council of Bishops meeting, and I tell your story everywhere I go to anybody that will listen and maybe land some seeds, plant some seeds of hope and joy for others. I'm also especially thankful today to Ramonica Malone Wardley and a great cabinet and conference staff and leaders that are open to experimentation and doing some things that require a little bit of risk. But we know that everyone does this with grace and patience. And I'm just so grateful, especially now as I have increased my territory, that you have been gracious enough to walk alongside me in this new way of being and as United Methodists across the United Methodist Connection. I'm one of 14 bishops doing this kind of multiple annual conference work. And we are all just grateful for the opportunity, a little tired at times, but grateful for the opportunity. So I encourage you to begin preparing for this meaningful time together that we'll have in just a few weeks. Get yourself prayed up and ready to be invigorated. So I look forward to gathering with you in just a few weeks, where we will worship, learn, and discern how God is leading us to thrive. And may this time of renewal, of connection and inspiration and reinvigoration be life-giving to us all. So thank you for being here, and I will be listening in and taking good notes throughout this time together. And in a moment, you'll hear about the lay gathering that follows this one of laity, and I will be there as well to walk alongside you and have you walk alongside me as we lead this annual conference together. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Bishop Harvey. We're grateful for you and your leadership and for leading us and getting us started tonight. Friends, we're also grateful for our annual conference worship leadership. Our director, Michael Vaughn, and Associate Director, Nikki Gray, and the great worship planning team. We'll now hear a video from those directors about what we can expect from worship this year.
Hi, my name is Michael Vaughn. I am your director of worship for the annual conference this year. It's my 11th year serving on the worship planning team, and I'm excited to do it again. I also am the director of music and worship at A&M Methodist up in College Station.
And hi, I am Nikki Gray, and I'm the associate worship director for Texas Annual Conference. I've been serving on the worship planning team for 7 years. I'm also the director of worship arts and music at Dickinson First United Methodist Church. We have a large team of creatives, liturgists, designers, pastors, music directors that have all been working for Texas Annual Conference 2025 worship. We are so excited for this to happen.
We are. And our theme this year is reinvigorate. That's for the whole conference. We're going to find a lot of different ways to do that through the scriptures, through the sermons, through the many styles of worship that you'll experience throughout the conference. You're also going to receive a booklet when you check in. That is going to have your worship guides this year, which will also be available on Guidebook. But in the worship guide booklet, you're going to have space there for taking notes if you need to use that space in other parts of the conference. In our opening worship on Sunday night at 7 o'clock, we are excited to celebrate in this contemporary service.
Yes, and there will be a children's ensemble, liturgical dancers, and a Southeast District band that has served together previously at some special district events, and that we are very excited to bring that to you. We will also have our opening address by Bishop Harvey.
We will. On Monday, the next day, it's going to be at 5:30 p.m. is our memorial service. In this service, we're going to remember the pastors and their spouses who have passed away in this year since we last met. We'll begin the service with a processional by the clergy, so you're going to need to bring your robes. And then the families of those who are recognized in the service will also be part of our processional.
Elijah Stansel will preach, and Bishop Harvey will lead us in celebrating communion. This is a traditional but modern service with hymns, chamber choir of about 20 with orchestra, featuring traditional mass texts in a brand new musical setting by Michael John Trotta. It will also have our handbells that will toll, and we will light candles, and we will sing our bells in memory of our loved ones.
It's a beautiful service. The next day on retirement will be our next service. It's at 11:30 on Tuesday. We're going to celebrate our retirees in this upbeat and casual service. We usually have music with a rhythm combo, and we put together different hymns that the retirees actually select themselves.
And of course, here's some inspiring and reinvigorating words and stories from our retiree videos. It will also include a passing of the mantle. So that brings us to ordination. This is going to be a celebration of ministry. This celebration of ministry service is a traditional service at First Houston's downtown campus on Tuesday at 7 p.m. We will also do a clergy processional there as well. So clergy, you will need your robes.
Bring it with you when you come to the service.
Yes.
We're going to recognize our local licensed pastors, and then we're going to also commission or ordain our new deacons and elders in this service.
There will be a conference choir leading our music, which consists of volunteers from churches all throughout our Texas Annual Conference.
Yeah, we have over 25 churches being represented this year in that one choir.
And so then this brings us to our Sunday worship service on Wednesday at the close of business, roughly around 11 a.m. And so this year we have a special guest, Michael Hahn. Michael Hahn, University Distinguished Professor Emeritus of Church Music, is a prolific author, hymnologist, clinician, and songwriter, and he will be leading our music. He has been a professor at Perkins School of Music for years, and Michael will definitely be a familiar face for many of us.
We're excited about the music that Michael's going to do with us. It'll range from Wesley hymns from 1738 to a gospel hymn by Fanny Crosby, and then wrapping up with a brand new song. Well, brand new, but it's pretty new, by Mark Miller, a great United Methodist composer. In that service, the bishop will wrap up the conference. She'll share the things that have happened as we have worked together throughout those several days, and then send us home feeling reinvigorated. We are excited to do worship with you and to be part of everything alongside you at Annual Conference this year. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mikey, Michael, Nikki, and team. We're looking forward to worshiping together as community this year at Annual Conference. We'll now have a video and live comments from Troy Griffin, our Associate Director of Media, about communication tools to help us prepare for our annual conference and navigate our annual conference experience and beyond annual conference. We'll have the video from Troy and then live comments.
Hi, I'm Griffin, Associate Director of Media at the Texas Annual Conference. We'll be using the Guidebook app again this year to help you keep up with all the important details and information for Annual Conference. Guidebook is a great tool that provides a calendar of events and links to everything you need to know about Annual Conference. In Guidebook, you'll be able to access the pre-conference journal, conference schedules, speaker bios, worship guides, reports, hotel maps, and more. You can also connect with others at the conference, download and share photos, and build your own personal schedule to help you keep track of all the meetings and sessions you want to attend. If you don't already have Guidebook, go to your device's app store and download the Guidebook app today, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. Once you have Guidebook, you can find our conference guide by searching for Texas Annual Conference 2025. If you have any questions, all this information can be found on our website at www.txcumc.org/guidebook. So please download and start using Guidebook today. It's your one-stop resource for all things Texas Annual Conference. We look forward to seeing you there. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Troy, your Associate Director of Media. And I'm going to open up for any questions about Guidebook. And also, before I do that, I wanted to let you know that Michael touched on it in his video about the booklet that's going to accompany Guidebook and will be handed out at registration. Kelsey Johnson has made that up for us, and it's really nice asset. And so at check-in, you'll be able to receive the printed complement that you can find on Guidebook app. This booklet is intended to be a tool to help navigate the flow of worship, business sessions at conference. It will include the daily schedules, maps, space for note-taking. That's a big thing. It's going to have space for note-taking and orders of worship, and it's going to have Thrive Sacred Art pages you can color. So we invite each of you to personalize and utilize your own conference booklet. We hope that it'll help serve as a lasting keepsake as well, and a tangible resource to share stories from the conference with your congregations. So, yeah, appreciate Kelsey putting that together for us, and looking forward to having that as well.
Thank you, Troy. Are there any questions for Troy in the chat?
There is a question in the
Troy,
Q&A.
someone said, is there, I'm sorry.
All right.
Troy, someone said, is this year's information already available in Guidebook? Do I need to update it?
No, it's the information is available. There's going to be some updates as we go. The booklet's not available yet. That will be, I believe, this Wednesday. And that's, if anything's added, it'll be added in there. But the conference
And is
schedule.
someone's, oh, sorry about Troy, someone said, is Guidebook, that Guidebook is asking for a passphrase?
Well, that is interesting. Let me check on that, and I'll get that answer back. I have not had that happen before, so let me dig in there and see what the passphrase is, and I'll pop it in the chat.
All right. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
All right. Each year for the last several years, Sheila has set up stations in our gathering spaces. She hands out devices and ensures that our Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters can participate in conference. Let us hear a word from Sheila via video.
Saludos, Conferencia Anual de Texas. Yo soy Sheila Castellano y soy la traductora para la Conferencia Anual del 2025. Esperamos verlos todos en la conferencia anual de este año y queremos asegurarnos de que todos puedan participar y comprender lo que se comparte en esta reunión. Este año, como en años anteriores, tendremos traducción al español disponible para aquellos que la necesitan sin costo alguno para ustedes. Se proporcionará traducción durante todas las sesiones de negocio y celebraciones de adoración en el salón principal del Hotel Hilton de las Américas y también tendremos traducción disponible para el servicio de adoración en la primera Iglesia Metodista Unida de Houston. Les animamos a que aprovechen de este servicio si se les resulta útil y pedimos que por favor compartan esta información con otras personas que puedan necesitar traducción. Busquen los letreros que los dirijan al área donde puedan recibir el equipo necesario y si tienen alguna pregunta, no deje de comunicarse conmigo al correo que aparece en la pantalla. Bendiciones.
Thank you, Sheila Cassiano, for helping us make room at the table as we continue striving to make our gathering as inclusive and accessible as possible. We will now hear from Robert Besser. He will tell us about vital and important ministries that we get to support financially this year. Robert?
Hey, friends. We'll have 4 opportunities to give at annual conference this year. 3 of them will be in the worship services. On Sunday night, the very first night, the first worship service opening will be to LPI Senior Retreat. That's Lydia Patterson Institute. We'll hear more about that ministry while we're at annual conference, but Sunday night's offering will go to help the seniors as they graduate and have their time together. So that's Sunday night. Monday night, it is the memorial service. You remember last year, we supported the annual conference of North Katanga with bikes and Bibles. Well, this year, we're going to do a little bit of that as well. This past year, 110 of their women evangelists have gone to be trained to be able to share the gospel. It's wonderful. However, there's no funds to be able to purchase the Bibles for them. Each of those Bibles cost $25. And so the offering on Monday night at the memorial service will go to help that important ministry of Bibles for our sisters in North Katanga annual conference in Congo. And then Tuesday night for the commissioning and ordination service, we'll be supporting the Wesley Foundation's all campus retreat. You'll hear more about the Wesley Foundation and their ministry across the conference for a weekend of worship and connection and also discernment. That's 3 of the worship services. You're able to go right here on the screen now to the QR code. You're also able to go to the website, the conference website. You'll also have those at the in the guidebook and also at annual conference. The 4th offering is an opportunity every year to help support the cost of annual conference. You know, the cost goes up continuously every year. And so we take up a special offering through the website for the annual conference. Thank you, Romonica.
Thank you, Robert. Friends, last year, you may remember that at conference, we were able to thank John Esquivel for 8 years of service as he rolled off as our conference lay leader. We were also able to approve and welcome our new conference lay leader, Janet Allen. We are grateful for Janet. She has entered into the job with lots of passion and grace, and we are so grateful, Janet, for all that you're doing. Talk to us a little bit about the laity session and luncheon.
Thank you, Ramonica. Good afternoon, everyone. As both an experienced lay
member delegate and in a new role as a conference lay leader. I look forward to seeing you at conference, whether you're new, experienced, or both. Behind the scenes, your connectional church family has been preparing for you and praying that our upcoming conference produces in each of us a reinvigorated commitment to sharing the gospel throughout our communities. Each of us, whether we're feeling so very new in our roles in communities or longtime leaders and delegates, have something to learn and to share when we gather in just a few weeks. On Monday morning at the conference, be sure to join the laity session for a devotional time, a celebration of laity and lay servant ministries, a refresher on the constitutional amendments before us, and some words of wisdom and encouragement from Claire Bowen and Celeste Eubanks. As you've heard, Celeste Eubanks is director of the Candler Center for Christian Leadership and previously served in the Alabama West Florida Conference of the United Methodist Church as director of leadership strategies and most recently as director of connectional ministries. Claire Bowen, senior consultant at Candler, is both a human resources professional from the corporate world and an active, lifelong United Methodist layperson. Your board of laity and conference communications team have developed some ideas to help you make the very best of your time at conference, no matter your ministry area of interest. And we'll share those with you then too. Then be sure to reserve your spot at the laity luncheon. With thanks to the conference, the ticket prices for lunch are reduced from the actual cost. There, Claire Bowen and Celeste Eubanks will facilitate our lunchtime discussions with each other as we envision our personal and connectional ministries together. And lastly, whether you are a new lay delegate member, experienced, or both, I hope you will stay on the call for a brief review of our unique roles at conference. In addition, an in-person orientation, first designed for youth, has been extended to all of us in a cross-generational learning opportunity on May 17th. Watch our Texas Conference communications for these details. Thank you for preparing so well for these meetings. I can't wait to see you there. Thank you, Janet. You just heard Janet talk a little bit about the 3 practice circles with Celeste Eubanks and Claire Bowen. We now have a video from Hannah Terry and Juanita Jackson telling us a little bit more about the 3 practice circles. And Hannah Terry is here if you have any questions for her about this practice.
Friends, in a few weeks, we'll gather together as an annual conference to worship, work on the business of the church, and learn together. We're really looking forward to learning from our keynote speakers, Claire Bowen and Celeste Eubanks. They'll be introducing us to 3 tried and true practices that have been proven to make a difference in our lives individually and our lives collectively. I am convinced that they are absolutely essential in order to thrive with one another, to thrive with our neighbors, and to thrive with God. To give you a little teaser, the 3 practices are these. I'll be unusually interested in others. I'll stay in the room with difference, and I'll stop comparing my best with your worst.
Hannah and I, along with other friends from our conference, as well as a Rio, Texas conference, have been working toward certification as referees to facilitate 3 practice circles, where we'll break into smaller groups and we'll try out this tool for ourselves. Our goal is that we all experience this process and can take it back to our local churches to guide vital conversations. So far, we've found the 3 practice circles to be a spiritual gym of sorts, and we work on the spiritual discipline of listening to one another. This is a gym where folks find their ears and folks find their voice. It's incredibly important in building community and absolutely necessary in building Christian community. Because these practices make the work of learning to reflect the presence of God super practical.
We're looking forward to working with y'all. We think it'll be fun, and we think it'll be well worth your time in picking up this new tool for the sake of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Truly.
See you soon, friends.
Thank you, Hannah and Juanita. Are there any questions about the 3 practice circles? All right, good deal. I think that you all will continue to hear more information about this. You'll talk about this more. Janet invited laity to remain on after this call. You'll talk about it a little bit more, and then we'll continue to have more information. And then, of course, you'll hear about it at annual conference. And there are resources on the website where you can learn more about it as well. Okay, since your conference leadership team has been hard at work since our last annual conference, taking the work that you have given to us to continue to advance that work as we pray and discern what we hear from you and the work that God is calling us to do together. You will now hear from two different teams to talk about some of that work. The first team will talk about updated rules for the conference, and then the second team will talk about the mission and vision for the conference. Fred, Debbie, and Elizabeth.
So thank you very much, Ramonica. Last year, to get our business done at annual conference, we ended up suspending the rules and structures because they no longer fit who we are or where we are. So the CLT spent the past year updating them to match our context as well as our current structure. Nothing new has been added. No substantive changes have been made. It's just really cleaned up. Examples of the grammatical and contextual alignment would be things like updating the Book of Discipline references, correcting misspellings, making the format consistent throughout, and updating its language to reflect our current structure. Now, all of which helps this document be congruent with who we are. In a spirit of transparency, we are providing 3 documents to you. You can find them in the pre-conference journal. I believe it's pages 25 through 45, and they include the original version of the rules and structures, a marked up copy with explanations of everything we did, and then a final revised version. Now, I'd like to point out that this work is important because without adopting these updated rules, we're going to end up having to suspend them all over again, which is why we will bring this for adoption at our annual conference on Monday, so that does not happen. Members of the team and the CLT are present, so clarifying questions can be asked here, but the best course of action for you will be reading it for yourself. And then the full vote is going to happen in that Monday session.
Thank you, Fred. Are there any questions about the updated rules? Okay, now we will hear from Mission and Vision with Emily Chapman, Luis Ramirez, and Stephanie Griffin. Their report can be found on page 72 of the pre-conference journal. And yes, Fred was right. The updated rules are on page 25 through 45 of the pre-conference journal. Thank you all.
Good afternoon, Texas Conference. We are delighted to be representing your conference leadership team. I'm Stephanie Griffin, a layperson from the Northwest District.
And I am Luis Ramirez, a clergy person from the Southeast District. The CLT is excited to report to you on the work our team has done for this past year.
And I'm Emily Chapman, a clergy person from the Metro District. And as Ramonica said, you can find our CLT report on page 72 in your pre-conference journal.
The CLT is responsible for implementing decisions approved by the annual conference and is charged to create a culture of accountability within the conference by conducting an ongoing process of strategic planning, goal setting, and annual reporting. This year, the CLT has anchored our work in the principles of the Thrive Initiative. We are committed to equipping and empowering clergy, laity, and congregations to explore and develop the places where they can thrive in their mission and ministry by intentionally aligning their work with the principles of Thrive: clarity, witness, abundance, kinship, and joy. Our full team split out into various working groups to bring alignment to all aspects of conference life, checking every space from conference rules to the website to our internal guiding principles to bring the conference into alignment with who we are now. These teams met in between our regular team meetings for the sometimes challenging and tedious work of detailed reviews and discerning how best to move forward with clear mission, vision, and values in all aspects of the Texas Annual Conference. You just heard from one of those subgroups specifically on our conference standing rules.
And the standing rules are a great example of the way that a community like ours that we are so privileged to be a part of, to do life together over many years, can get busy with so many things that our guiding documents begin to get a little bogged down. So over the years, we've adjusted and removed things here and there as the conference deemed it necessary and appropriate to do our work together. And over time, those little changes here and there meant that when you looked at the whole picture, there were inconsistencies in language and things that simply didn't make sense where they were. And the rules are certainly not the only place where this happens. So it was time for a full review of everything to make sure we are reflecting where we actually are so we can move into God's good future for the TAC. Now, we are a denomination, as you all know well, that loves a process. And so as we are putting new processes and initiatives into place, we are deeply aware of the importance of communication so we can all feel like we're pulling in the same direction. We've invested significant time in assessing our communication strategies with gratitude to the conference staff and also to our consultant, Kelsey Johnson, for her help in putting together many new resources that we're excited to tell you about, some of which you got to see during the preview time before this meeting started. Things from website resources to the launch of a conversational podcast, This Is How We Thrive, that we think you should all listen to before conference, wherever you get your podcasts.
Friends, through visioning and collaboration, we have taken significant steps in increasing alignment around values, strengthening our connection, supporting our churches, and preparing for the future of our conference. In April of 2025, the CLT adopted a mission and vision statement for the team's work together that is aligned with the principles of Thrive. Again, clarity. The Texas Annual Conference prioritizes prayerful decision-making and clear communication. Witness. The TAC encourages congregations to wholeheartedly share God's love in word and in action. Abundance. The TAC is grateful for the possibilities God's gifts provide and commits to wisely and generously steward resources which are held in common. Kinship. The TAC nourishes mutual, meaningful relationships among its clergy, laity, and neighboring communities. And certainly, last but not least, joy. The Texas Annual Conference celebrates the joy that comes from abiding in Christ and making a difference in the world. The conference leadership team is energized and excited about the future of the Texas Annual Conference and is a group committed to bringing all of our gifts together to best help our churches and communities to reflect God's dream for the world where all people can thrive and where God's love is joyfully made known by United Methodists across our entire region. Friends, we look forward to being with you later this month, and we are honored to serve as part of your conference leadership team.
Thank you, CLT leaders, for all of your work and for presenting today. I don't think I see any questions right now, so thank you all. We have a resolution that will come before the annual conference from BHECM, which is the Board of Higher Education and Campus Ministry. Today, we have a video from Tom Tickle on behalf of the board about that resolution. Tom is also here with us to answer questions if you have any. Let us watch the video.
I'm Tom Tickle, one of the campus ministers at the Wesley Foundation at SFA in Nacogdoches. It's my pleasure to introduce to you a creative model of funding assistance for campus ministry, not only for this conference, but across the entire state of Texas, and not only for Wesley Foundations, but for college ministries in chaplaincy and local church settings as well. The proposal is called the Resolution for Vital and Sustainable Campus Ministry. Several campus ministers began meeting last year to ask questions about how the connectional system could help secure future leaders for the United Methodist Church. Promoting sustainable funding in college ministry helps to do just that. In the future, most campus ministries will almost certainly need multiple streams of income to provide for the financial needs of reaching a community that has no way to support itself. We soon concluded a statewide permanent fund to provide formula-based grant money to college ministries could be one of those reliable streams of income. If you haven't already, I encourage you to read the many reasons why this is important for the church and the conference in the resolution itself in your pre-conference journal. With the help of the Texas Methodist Foundation, we developed a plan to present to all the conferences in Texas, providing for a cooperative effort that benefits the entire state, not just one conference. Passing this resolution is the next step in that plan. This resolution commits the conference to contribute $50,000 to the Texas United Methodist Campus Ministry Fund under two conditions. First, that at least $50,000 be contributed from a source outside the conference. And second, that at least one other conference participates. I'm happy to report that both of these conditions have already been met at this point. Both the Horizon and Rio, Texas conferences have already approved an initial $50,000 investment toward this permanent fund that will be used to help college ministries reach college students. Each of these conferences has already or is expected to pass similar resolutions to the one before you. This resolution also establishes a vital and sustainable campus ministry task force that will present recommendations to further develop this fund at the 2026 annual conference. It is my hope that our conference will join the others in Texas who are committed to helping college ministries find a sustainable path to the future.
Are there any questions for Tom? Okay, good job, Tom. Thank you for your video. Thank you for being here. This resolution can be found in the pre-conference journal on page 50 for you to learn more about that. Now we will move on to Lakeview bylaws updates. At annual conference, Josh Pulver, the president of Lakeview, will be with us. But today we will hear from TAC pastor and board member Reggie Clemens about bylaws updates that Lakeview will be bringing before the conference this year. Thank you, Reggie.
Thank you, Ramonica. Good afternoon, everyone. As a clergy member of our conference and also the vice chair of the Lakeview Board of Directors, I am really excited about the fact that our conference is taking the reins this year and leading our summer camp experience for 2025 and beyond. Registration is now open for weeks 1 and 2, which is June 16th through 20th, and also June 23rd through 27th. The deadline is actually been extended to June 1st. So you have more time to register your campers and your counselors for a week that I guarantee you will change their lives. Go to our conference website for more information. As our Lakeview board has been working to become more consistent in our administrative areas, enabling us to offer the best possible camp experience, the Lakeview Governance Committee has performed review of our bylaws and has made numerous edits to ensure consistency, to correct grammatical errors, and to approve other changes to enhance operational efficiency. These bylaw amendments were approved by the Lakeview Board of Directors in March. One of the amendments was to reduce the required percentage of the Texas Annual Conference members of the Lakeview Board of Directors. The percentage was reduced from 67% to 55%, which will still continue to allow our conference to maintain a strong presence on this board and allows Lakeview the flexibility to recruit additional members with specified expertise that can impact Lakeview's future. A motion to ratify these amendments will be presented at our annual conference this month. This adjustment will continue to allow our conference to have a majority of the directors on the board and allowing us greater participation in the decisions that define the future of camp and of our camp ministry. I look forward to seeing all of you at conference this year.
Are there any questions for Reggie? Okay, Reggie, I don't think we have any questions. Thank you. Okay, at conference, friends, we will vote on 4 constitutional amendments. Today we have Lindsay Kirkpatrick, DeAndre Johnson, Tom
Hey,
Pate, and
Monica,
yes.
this Kip, before we move on to that, we did have a question regarding the campus ministry resolution. Would it be okay if we address that before we move into this piece?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The question came up, there were a couple of questions, but the first one was regarding the campus ministries. It mentioned outside the conference, support from outside the conference. I wondered if Tom was here and could address that.
Yes, thanks, Kip.
Sure.
Yeah, outside the conference just means from another Texas conference was what it was. Well, the funds can be from anywhere outside the conference. For the from another conference or from an individual from another conference. In other words, not using conference assets. That's what that means.
Yep. Was there another question? You said a couple of questions.
Yeah, there was another one that asked about it was a brief question that you needed the whole thing to, I think, refer to it. That asked if some of the funds were coming from reserves, I guess, from the initial investment of this.
And I believe that was answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the response was the initial investment will be from conference reserves.
Bishop.
Yeah, Ramonica and Tom, you can stay on here. Just a bit of rationale that I think might help here is that what we understand from our conferences is that our students go to universities and get involved in Wesley foundations and Wesley communities in places other than the Texas Conference. So what this pool of money will allow us to do is really take care of our students throughout the state of Texas. And there are some campus ministries that are already working a little bit like that. But this will allow us to actually take care of our students from the Texas Conference wherever they go and get involved. And Tom, I think that's part of the rationale in establishing this sort of what I call a bucket of money that will allow us to be to take care of our students, regardless of where they end up and whatever Wesley Foundation and whatever conference in the state of Texas. And what makes this really work well right now is there's only 2 bishops in the state of Texas, myself and Bishop Sines. Bishop Sines is the Horizon Texas Conference, and I have the other 2. So this really, again, makes another fluid way of us being able to leverage one another's resources to take care of all of our students.
Thank you, Bishop.
Let me check to see if there are any other questions before I move on. There's another one that says take care of students outside of state, ? Tom?
No, this conference, this fund would only be for within granted to campus ministries within the state of Texas.
Okay, thank you. Okay. This year at conference, we will vote on 4 constitutional amendments. We have a group of individuals who are with us who are going to talk to us a little bit about those amendments. We have Lindsay Kirkpatrick, DeAndre Johnson, Tom Pace, and Janet Allen to share a little bit more about the amendments and the various opportunities to learn more. Like we will have a webinar on May 13th at 6 o'clock p.m. to talk a little bit more about this. We will also have brief opportunities to have some refresher information offered at both the clergy session and laity session at annual conference prior to us going into plenary on Monday afternoon to talk about it a little bit more before we go into voting. Okay, we'll have our team talk to us a little bit more about these resolutions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ramonica. Friends, you can find the information about the constitutional amendments in your pre-conference journal. I believe it's on page 51. Somebody could check my pagination accordingly. We are we have 4 ballots of constitutional amendments that we are voting on, and the ballots are regarding things that were voted on at General Conference. But the first ballot that we'll look at is actually a bundled set of amendments to the Constitution that are all affecting regionalization. If you remember in the lead up to General Conference, there's a lot of conversation around regionalization as a way to restructure the church to provide some more equity. And so ballot 1 will focus all of those changes to the Constitution that have to do with regionalization. And some are relatively minor, such as adding the word regionalization in certain places that talks about the structure of the church, and some perhaps a little more major as it begins to flesh out exactly what that looks like. So we're going to, in brief, kind of go through each of these ballot measures. And then, as Ramonica mentioned, on May 13th at 6 p.m., we will have a webinar in conjunction with some members from Rio, Texas, to talk more specifically about these different ballot measures and to ask and answer questions accordingly. So here's your brief rundown. You'll get the fuller version at the webinar here. I believe we have a slide. There we go. So these slides are readily available on the conference website at txcumc.org/amendments, and really are in part some of the resources that were developed by the United Methodist communications team as well, and so they're available denominationally. So regionalization is really all about effective ministry in every culture. It's really about how does the church continue then to be responsive to the needs that are on the ground in each context in which the church exists. And so it allows United Methodists here to best serve their own unique communities, whether they be in Africa, the Philippines, the US, or Europe. We all live in unique circumstances, and our neighborhoods are different, and the needs of those around us are different. So with regionalization in place, we can all better minister to the people around us because each region of the church can make decisions that will ensure ministry and outreach efforts will be successful in each of our specific settings here. You should know that regionalization was developed collaboratively. It had voices from the connectional table, from the Philippines, and ultimately was really birthed out of the work of the Standing Committee on Central Conference Matters, which includes voices from every corner of the church working to really develop what would be best for how the church might better represent its global nature at this juncture in this time. At General Conference, regionalization was well supported by the delegates there, was voted on by 78% in the affirmative here. So this had lots of momentum and lots of support from those voting at General Conference and beyond. And so it is a strong affirmation then for where the church is headed here. Regionalization is meant in parts to provide equal parts for the denomination as a whole. That is to say that for the longest time, we have, for the most part, understood ourselves primarily and structured ourselves primarily out of the U.S. context in our central conferences, when they leave General Conference, have to, in some sense, reinterpret the actions of General Conference for their specific context. Now, this is work that they've done for a number of years, our central conferences, and regionalization simply helps to restructure the church so that there's more equanimity across all the regions, and then to fundamentally change some of our conversation at General Conference, where the bulk of it that deals very specifically with U.S. matters, that the whole church isn't having to deal with things that that the U.S. only needs to deal with in that way. So existing central conferences under this plan will be renamed as regional conferences. So the existing central conferences, as they are currently constituted, will simply be renamed from central conference to regional conference. And then in addition to that, a new U.S. regional conference will be created. And this will put the U.S. in parity with the other central conferences, thus creating a new structure. So the General Conference before regionalization basically looked like this, where the United States was kind of the center of gravity. And when General Conference met, then most of the legislative priority was centered around United States concerns. And then the other central conferences, as they then met individually, they would then have to reinterpret those things for their own context. Now, it's important to note that for quite some time, the central conferences have had ability then to adapt General Conference things for their own context, certain aspects of things for their own context. In the new structure, upon approval of regionalization here, with the approval of ballot one and all of its measures, the General Conference will be restructured as you see before you here, where each of the central conferences, you'll note we have more central conferences now per action of General Conference. We'll have more central conferences, and each one of those then, including the United States, will be on parity where they will meet as a regional conference to determine matters that are specific to their context. And then they all meet together at General Conference to deal with things that relate to the general church. To that point, then, all the regional conferences in this structure will share in our commonality. Those things include our Constitution as it is, our doctrinal standards and our theological tasks as it is, the ministry of all Christians as it is, the social principles as it is. All the regions, all the regional conferences will share in those things which will not change. And so our United Methodist beliefs are not changing in that way. I'm going to pass it on to Reverend Lindsay Kirkpatrick, who's going to talk more fully about some of those things that that will not change for us and the things that will become adaptable for us accordingly.
Thank you, DeAndre, and hello, everyone. So whenever we're talking about these constitutional amendments, General Conference did so much good work last year. But when it comes to regionalization and then some other pieces that Dr. Pace is going to speak about, its work cannot be completed until it has been ratified by us, the delegates to annual conference, because it requires constitutional amendments. And so none of this will go into effect until we have this opportunity to affirm and ratify the work of General Conference. There's a few slides I want to share with you. The first I want to mention is that the Council of Bishops, the Judicial Council, the general agencies, the General Conference, all of those things, those structures stay the same as they were before. None of these constitutional amendments affect any of those structures. However, it will change what we do at General Conference. At General Conference, unfortunately, much of the time historically has been spent on things that only applied to the United States, because all of the other parts of the United Methodist Church outside of the United States are part of a central conference where they deal with regional matters. And we don't have one of those here in the United States. And so this was our only forum that we could deal with those matters. what that meant was that there were people traveling from all over the world who were spending quite a lot of their time on things that did not apply to them. And so this will allow us to use General Conference more strategically for things that involve the whole global church. And we look forward to that being a shift. I also want to mention that there are, whenever we create this regional conference structure, and it just renames our central conferences to regional conferences, and then creates a United States regional conference as well, there are some things that regional conferences cannot do. Okay. One of those things is that it cannot create its own constitution, and it also cannot adopt any legislation or policies that violate our United Methodist Constitution in the General Book of Discipline. And so that's good to know that these bodies will not be able to do anything in conflict with the Constitution of the United Methodist Church. It also cannot alter our doctrinal standards, our theological task, the ministry of all Christians, or the social principles, as Reverend Johnson mentioned. But there are some things it can do. Regional conferences will have the opportunity to draft and publish their own regional book of discipline, and as well as their own hymnals and books of worship, and other liturgical resources that make sense for their context. Regional conferences will also be able to set requirements for ordination and licensed ministry with respect to their needs and resources. So educational requirements and university synod, all of those kinds of things will be able to be adaptable for the region where that the United Methodist Church is. And in that, I'm sure we all understand that the structure of colleges and universities in some countries is different than in others. And so this will allow that to be taken into account. A regional conference will also be able to set standards for lay membership. There are certain issues that are very important in certain parts of our church. And then there are that need to be addressed, where in other places it's really just not happening. And so it doesn't need to be specifically stated. So the pieces about Christian ministry that we said before, those are not being changed, but individual standards for lay membership, the regional conference will be able to address that. The regional conference will also be able to develop practices in those regional hymnals that I mentioned before, practices around marriage ceremonies and funerals and other rites that are appropriate in those contexts and according to the laws of those places. And a regional conference can also reorganize annual conference districts, even charge conferences, to make sense for its context. I also want to mention that this will make it easier for annual conferences to ensure that policies and practices are aligning with the laws of every country. And I also want to mention that regional conferences will have the ability to determine the process for clergy trials. The structure of requiring central conferences and jurisdictional conferences will also shift to a structure of requiring regional conferences all over the world and making jurisdictional conferences allowable but not required. They'll go from shall to may. Okay, I also want to share that the regionalization plan will require, as I mentioned just a moment ago, amending the United Methodist Constitution, because there is not currently a provision for regional conferences in our Constitution. And while I hope that you look up these constitutional amendments for yourself, you can find them on the conference website and read them in more detail. One thing I really want to mention is that these votes are done in the aggregate. And what that means is that it is not just, let's say you have 10 conferences and 9 of them have a yay vote for these amendments. And so you have a majority of conferences. No, it's a total of the vote tally in every annual conference combined together. And so us in the Texas Annual Conference know how tight and close votes can be. And you can see as an example here, the difference worldwide, theoretically or hypothetically, just with 6 votes. And I mentioned that to say this is a great time to not go use the restroom at annual conference. When we're speaking about constitutional amendments and taking those votes, every vote really matters. And so we hope that you will prioritize being there to vote on this so that the work of General Conference can fully go into effect.
And as we mentioned before, all of these can be found at txcumc.org/amendments, where you've got other resources there to give you more details about each of these ballot measures and specifically about regionalization as well. I believe Reverend Tom Pace is going to share a little bit about the other ballot measures that we'll be voting on as well.
Yes, the other 3 are not as complicated. So that's the good news. I couldn't get really any more complicated than the regionalization ones. And I was really glad that they bound them all together into one ballot so we didn't have 90% of them pass and the others fail. There are 3 others. I think we have Ben is going to, there it is, PowerPoint. It is, if you're on your phone, it's going to be too small for you to actually read. But there are 3 additional amendments. The first one is in paragraph 4, all in section 1, paragraph 4, article 4, on inclusiveness of the church. And this simply adds the words gender and ability to a requirement that no pastor, no church can preclude someone from either joining the church or participating in the ministries of the church based on their gender or ability, disabilities or abilities. Interestingly, there was in 2016 a amendment to add gender, which failed. It passed with only 61% of the vote, and this time it's coming back with adding the word ability to it. The next ballot number 3, will have to do with racial justice. And if you will look at this 2016, this is what is in our current discipline. And I think it's important for me to read this and then the other for you. The first part remains fairly similar, but then you'll get a sense of the difference if you see how the new amendment will replace this. The United Methodist Church proclaims the value of each person as a unique child of God and commits itself to healing and wholeness of all persons. The United Methodist Church recognizes that the sin of racism has been destructive to its unity through its history. Racism continues to cause painful division and marginalization. The United Methodist Church shall confront and seek to eliminate racism, whether in organizations or in individuals, in every facet of its life and in society at large. The United Methodist Church shall work collaboratively with others to address concerns that threaten the cause of racial justice at all times and at all places. So the amendment to the Constitution is as follows, and the first line is very similar. The United Methodist Church proclaims that from God's goodness and love, God created all persons as God's unique and beloved children. Then it gets more specific about the evils of racism and acknowledges in more clear ways the sin of racism within the United Methodist Church. Racism opposes God's law, goodness, and love, and diminishes the image of God in each person. Fueled by white privilege, white supremacy, and colonialism, the sin of racism has been a destructive scourge on global society and throughout the history of the United Methodist Church. It continues to destroy our communities, harm persons, obstruct unity, and undermine God's work in the world. Racism must be eradicated. Therefore, on the United Methodist Therefore, the United Methodist Church commits to confronting and eliminating all forms of racism, racial inequity, colonialism, white privilege, and white supremacy in every facet of its life and in society at large. So the focus here is both on a more significant acknowledgement of the sin of racism within the United Methodist Church, and more specificity in terms of the call to combat racism, both in the United Methodist Church and in society at large, and in the world around us. The fourth ballot is one that focuses on who can vote for delegates to General Conference. And it simply adds to it some specificity about local pastors and what the educational requirements they have if they're going to vote for delegates to General Conference. So it specifies, up until now, it has specified that local pastors who've completed a course of study or Master of Divinity had voting rights. Now it specifies that it must be a Master of Divinity from a University Senate approved theological school, or its equivalent as recognized in a central conference. So in central conferences, there would be the ability to make those decisions themselves about what qualified, and have served as a minimum of 2 consecutive years under appointment immediately preceding the election. Let me just note that should the regionalization amendment pass, the language will be changed to reflect the change to regional conference rather than central conference. So those are the additional 3 amendments that we'll have to address and deal with, and it will be important that we all be there to vote. 61% is a good example of how we just sort of almost failed, but didn't quite get there.
Thanks, Tom. There were a couple of questions about, I think, ballot 2. Can we pull ballot 2 back up? There was a question about why words were in one sentence and not another. Why are gender and ability not added to the last sentence? And then another one says, why is gender ability added to the first sentence and not to the second sentence? I mean, this one says to the second sentence.
I don't have a clear answer about that myself as to why they added it, where they added it, and why they didn't add it to where they didn't add it. I think, well, I won't venture to add conjecture to the right crafting of that ballot because I wasn't part of that legislative process. I do know, and just in case we didn't say that already, none of these ballot measures are amendable. And so they are what they are.
That's right.
For our vote for this ratification process. So just note that we can do some investigation, and if we can find an answer to that, we'll include it in the webinar on the 13th, and certainly add to any further conversation we have at annual conference. But at the moment, I don't have a good answer as to why it's added where it is.
I don't know.
Also, this information can be found on the conference website. There's more information with resources there. There's a page on page 51 of the pre-conference journal that can direct you to the actual page on the website, and gives a little bit of a breakdown. Bishop?
Yes, just to follow up, I don't know either why that was left off. I do know that when the final book of discipline, with all of these revisions, should the amendments pass, there's usually an editorial review. So if there's an editorial reason, oftentimes they will go back and make sure it doesn't change the essence of anything. I've known them to change a comma or something like that, and that's really important to note. It might have been, and the fact that they cannot be amended, these are up and down votes. They can be, you can ask questions, clarify, but they cannot be amended. One other thing, and it might have been mentioned and I might have missed it, because this is a lot. Just so you know, it is a lot. So look on the website, educate yourself, go to the webinar. But the results are not announced at annual conference. As I think it's been said that they are canvass, it's an aggregate vote. So once, and because not every annual conference is at the same time, most of the annual conferences in the US are in the summer, May, June. But in other parts of the world, other parts of the connection, they are at different times of the year. So the announcement of whether they passed or didn't will not be made likely until sometime in 2026, because all of the aggregate votes are taken. So the secretary, Trey Burns, gets an envelope, seals it, and sends it. In a minute, you'll hear how we're going to vote for this, because this is so important that they're kept. And then the announcement will be made, and it likely will not be made until 2026. I will not see the results of ours. I don't want to see them. I don't want to know them. So they are sent, and then the announcement of the whole will be made. There's a word in the discipline called canvassing, and the Council of Bishops canvasses the votes. And I have been there for that part of it at one time. I was part of the canvasser, and we just count the aggregate votes. At the point, I didn't even know where they came from. So just so you know, don't wait for us to announce whether your favorite amendment passed or didn't, or whether I wouldn't hold your breath, because it will be a while before that announcement is made. So I think it's important to note that.
Yeah, and that's partly because you don't even announce what your annual conference voted, because it's like you don't announce as the polls are closing. You don't want to impact future votes that may happen much later at annual conferences based on how an early conference voted. So it makes perfect sense when you think about it, but it is frustrating, I know, because you're like, what? We got to wait for a year and a half or whatever. So
thank you all. It is a lot, and so thank you all for the good and hard work of putting it together and presenting it, and being available to present it in multiple places for us. So thank you. Friends, I want to remind you that we will vote on these amendments on Monday afternoon of annual conference. And those who are eligible to vote on constitutional amendments are elders in full connection, including retired, deacons in full connection, including retired, and lay members. We will now have a video from Lance Richards, our head teller, to talk to us a little bit about the voting process. Okay.
Hello, friends. My name is Lance Richards, and I'm the head teller of the annual conference this year. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the upcoming session of the Texas Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. We'll be gathering in Houston, May 25th through the 28th, 2025, at the Hilton of the Americas. This year, we'll have several important items to vote on as we seek to faithfully lead our church into the future. On Monday, May 26th, we'll vote by written ballot on 4 sets of constitutional amendments. These amendments are coming to us from General Conference and require thoughtful consideration from the voting members of the annual conference. These amendments can be debated, but not modified. You can find fact sheets, videos, and other resources about these amendments on the conference website at www.txcumc.org/TAC25. In addition to those ballots, we'll be voting by show of hands on several key matters before the body. Approval of the Secretary's support for the Conference Secretary, updates to the Texas Annual Conference rules, approval of the Lakeview Methodist Conference Center's updated bylaws, a resolution coming from the Board of Higher Education and Ministry, the 2026 Annual Conference budget, and the nomination slate for our leadership across our annual conference. To ensure everything runs smoothly during our voting sessions, I'm putting together a team of tellers who will help distribute and count ballots and will count hands during each of our voting sessions. If you'd like to serve as a teller, I'd love to have you on the team. Please email me at lancerichards@gmail.com and let me know you're interested. It will truly be an honor to serve alongside of you. Friends, thank you for your leadership, your prayers, and your commitment to our shared mission. I can't wait to gather with you in Houston as we worship, connect, and do the work of the church together. See you soon.
Thanks, Lance. Lance says that when he calls you or emails you, please don't reject his call. because he needs us tellers. Lance, is there anything else you would like to add, or are there any questions for Lance? Okay, thank you, Lance. Robert Besser will now introduce his team from the Center for Connectional Resources as they prepare to present. Oh,
Veronica?
Yes.
Yeah, we have one question back to our the constitutional amendments.
Okay.
We might want to address on ballot 4, constitutional amendment. Does this move the University Senate into a constitutional agency, or is it already such? So
Tom?
one of our panel might know that.
Can you say it again, Kip?
Yeah, does ballot number 4 of the constitutional amendments move the University Senate into a constitutional agency, or is it already such?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else, Kip?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
Thank you, Romonica. Friends, at the heart of the annual conference is a deep connection. It's a bond that strengthens our churches, our clergy, and our shared mission together. The Center for Connectional Resources is honored to steward the financial, the property, the operational assets that sustain and empower our congregations and our clergy. Through careful management of pensions, health benefits, equitable compensation, our new Shepherds Fund partnership, we continue to care for those who serve. Oversight of property insurance, fiscal operations, legal matters, human resources, and closed church concerns remains a vital priority, ensuring that our churches are supported and equipped for ministry. We're also committed to preserving our shared heritage and building a vibrant future through our leadership in Safe Sanctuary, in Golden Cross, the Commission on Archives and History, and the Texas Annual Conference Cemetery located in Palestine near Lakeview. Connectionalism is more than a framework. It's the way we live our faith together. You'll find the full set of the Center for Connectional Resources, the reports, beginning in the pre-conference journal on page 122. There are 12 reports there for you to review. As is our practice, several of these reports will be presented tonight in depth during this session. I'm going to invite Reverend Justin Miklacek, the chair of the Board of Pensions, to present their report.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today. As Robert said, my name is Justin. I serve Parkway in Sugar Land, and I want to lead us through some of the details of what the work of the Board of Pensions has done. I know that this is known as the report with lots of numbers, and we don't always want to admit that we don't know what it means. But so I will be as clear as possible because there are big changes coming to how clergy pensions are funded, and each of us have a role in funding those. So I will tell you more about that. But the big thing to let you know, and that has been the object of our work, is that effective January 1st, 2026, Westpath is replacing the Clergy Retirement Security Program. You might have heard that called CRISP before, with the brand new Compass Plan. The new Compass Plan is, as you can see in the words on your screen, an account-based defined contribution plan. Really what that means is that each clergy has their own account where contributions are going to be paid into by the church, but also by you, the clergy person. The church is going to end up making 3 kinds of contributions, and these are kind of guardrails set by, or guidelines rather, set by Westpath. The first is a 3% figure that's directly related to your compensation plan. The second part is going to be a dollar-for-dollar match up to 4% of the clergy participants' pension plan compensation. And the third is going to be a flat dollar amount that is contributed the same amount for each clergy person. This was a equity piece developed by Westpath to ensure that people who are in part-time appointments or in lower income areas are also receiving or able to fund their pensions. Let me let you know a little bit what that looks like as it relates closer to home at the in the Texas Annual Conference. This will be on the next slide. So the Texas Annual Conference Board of Pensions recommends the following billing rates for the new Compass plan that will start January 1 of 2026. That will be set at 7%. The first part of that is a non-matching component. This is just the base contribution. There will be a 2% matching component, and there's the flat dollar component that I just mentioned a moment ago. Also included on top of this 7 is a 3% billing for the comprehensive protection plan. This would be something like, think of it like a safety net to where if there is the death of a spouse or other things that happen in the course of someone's life, a benefit is paid to that person. So that's that 3%. And then 1% goes to the sustentation fund, which funds things like interim ministry, if a pastor goes on leave, the costs that are incurred there. So if you add all of those percentages and numbers together, the total billing rate that will be charged to your churches is 11% effective January 1st, 2026, which it's important to note that is a decrease because our current billing rate is at 13.8%. So that is a lower rate that you will see in your local church and the billing that is there. If you look on the next slide, this is kind of a full picture breakdown of this new Compass. It says DC plan, that's defined contribution plan. So the way this will work out, I've already said the top part, the defined contribution at 3%, the matching at 2%, and a flat dollar amount, which comes out to be about 2%. We are using our pension reserves to do another 2% match there. And then there will be a 4% below that is contributed directly by the clergy person or the clergy participant. So a clergy that is contributing 4% of their total compensation will actually see approximating 13% contributed to their pension plan. If you look at the next slide here, yes. So the minimum rate that we recommend, or the enrollment contribution rate, is at 4%, meaning everyone, no matter the appointment, no matter where you're located, will be enrolled at 4%. And one feature of this new Compass plan is what's called automatic contribution escalation, which is a lot of syllables to mean that base plan that you're enrolled at will increase by 1% each year. So every time you hit January 1, there will be a 1% increase starting at 4, and that will be capped, as of now, capped at 8%. So we will not automatically push you beyond 8%. Other things that are not related to the Compass plan but are important to note and are part of the regular business of the Board of Pensions each year is that the past service rate for any clergy that have service under the pre-1982 pension plan, the service rate is about a 3% increase. Was $967. It is up to $996. And the surviving spouse rate remains at 75% as it has been. Churches that are participating in the Clergy Retirement Supplemental Program, also known as CRISP, in 2025 will qualify for a pension rebate. This is a program that we did this last year. Churches that paid 100% of their conference apportionments will receive a rebate in the pension billed to the church. Robert can correct me if I am off the mark here, but I believe that's paid out in July of this year. The refund we are going to continue this program using our pension reserves. Sorry, lost my place in my script for a second. The refund amount will equal the total defined benefit paid in 2025 by the church. In 2025, the direct or the DB contribution paid is 6.8% of the total pastor plan compensation. The estimated cost of the rebate is 1.6 million. That assumes every church is meeting 100% conference apportionment payouts. And the rebate distribution, yes, that's right, it will be made in July of 2026. Just to give you an update on the status of our pension reserves, you can see the status of that going back all the way to fiscal year 2022. We are projected to have some operating deficits. For 2025, there'll be a deficit of roughly 2.8 million. And you can see in 2026, we are charting out for roughly about a 2.6 million operating deficit. Part of that has to do, we are using our pension reserves for matching UMPIP contributions. We are also using our pension reserves to fund the pension rebates for those churches that pay 100% apportionment, conference apportionments of this last year and in the following year. In 2026, the deficit reflects an intentional use of our reserves to fund half of the 4% clergy contribution to Compass and the pension rebate for 100% conference apportionment payouts in 2025.
Thank you, Justin, for the report. Let me add that our West Path representative, his name is John Allen. John will be at our annual conference. He will be presenting on Monday morning to the clergy in the clergy session. And then on Monday afternoon in the business session, he'll present there as well to the clergy and laity. And then third, he'll have a booth, a vendor booth, so that anyone who had questions about the Compass plan, they're able to talk to him directly while he's at annual conference on the 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That will end our report for the Board of Pensions. I'm going to invite Reverend Preston Morgan, the Board of Trustees, to join us now to give the Board of Trustees report.
Good afternoon, Bishop Harvey and delegates of the Texas Annual Conference. It is an honor to serve as chair of the Board of Trustees. I wish I could see all 272 of your faces. I look forward to seeing you at Annual Conference. Our team, composed of both laity and clergy, works on your behalf to steward the property and legal affairs of the conference. I also want to lift up a word of thanks to all the conference staff, Robert Besser, Will Reed, Mark Helms, and everyone in the office who helps the Board of Trustees do what we need to do, including the conference chancellors and our broader legal support. Some of these things are quite complicated, and it takes a lot of people for the Board of Trustees to move forward meaningfully. We can find our full report beginning on page 144 of the pre-conference journal. It was approved in the consent calendar. Some elements in our report are required by the Book of Discipline, while others reflect the scope and depth of our ongoing work. See details in our report concerning. There are 9 churches that have closed since the last pre-conference meeting. 20 properties are listed for sale. 3 properties are in the process of sale and or transfer. 17 properties are owned by the Texas Annual Conference, and the Board of Trustees have responsibility over them. The Texas Annual Conference has known mineral interests in 15 counties. All of these are outlined in your pre-conference journal. There is information also concerning campus ministry support, details of other properties updates, property and other commercial insurance coverage information, and the cemetery that was already mentioned that is owned and operated by the Texas Conference. Finally, I'd like to turn towards the end of that report and highlight Addendum E, which is titled Procedures and Processes for Reaffiliation as a United Methodist Church. This policy, adopted in November of 2024, outlines a clear path for churches seeking to return after disaffiliating under paragraph 2553. I encourage everybody to review it carefully. Thank you for entrusting the trustees with this vital responsibility. This concludes our report, and I love you all.
Thank you, Preston, very much. I'm going to invite Reverend Brian Brooks, Chair of the Council on Finance and Administration, to present the next report. It begins on page 161 of the pre-conference journal. Brian, welcome.
Friends, we are so grateful for each district, church, and member for each contribution submitted to the ongoing ministries of the Texas Annual Conference and our continued connectional work together. Thank you so much for your continued faithfulness. The Texas Annual Conference is solvent, and we are grateful to the previous leaders and financial commitments that enable us to continue to have sufficient financial reserves. Our conference is financially stable and continues to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. No matter what the future brings, for all the details, please read our full report and refer to the visual charts and spreadsheets in the following, and it's on page 162 in your pre-conference journal. Don't hesitate to contact us or ask us any additional questions. The total apportionment receipts were $6.636 million in 2024, which was a 72.2% of the budget target. Conference paid apportionment represented 89% of the budget target for the year, and the actual conference paid apportionment receipts for 2024 totaled $3.921 million versus the budget target of $4.406 million. In 2024, total reserves for the conference were $36.930 million. Year-over-year reserves increased $6.377 million, up from the year-end balance of $30.553 million in 2023. The designated reserve component of the conference total reserve position was $20.675 million, up $3.309 million from the previous year. These available reserves, the component or i.e. non-designated reserves of the conference total reserve position, was $16.255 million, up $3.068 million from the previous year. In 2024, conference expenses exceeded receipts in the amount of $1.318 million. Investment returns of $3.341 million, coupled with proceeds from the sale of district parsonages totaling $1.045 million, produced positive inflows of $4.386 million to the conference's available reserve position. As a result, the conference's available reserves position, i.e. non-designated reserves, increased $3.068 million during the year. Total receipts, that is apportionment collections plus other funding sources, were on target to the budget in 2024. Actual expenses exceeded budgeted expenses by $1.320 million. Higher expenses in 2024 were related to the following: operating costs related to the Conference Service Center building at Main Street, the legal utility maintenance and tax expenses on acquired properties, the insurance costs on all conference properties, and the costs incurred in holding the 2024 session of the annual conference. The conference used available reserves totaling $1.317 million to fund the higher expenses. And although expenses exceeded receipts, conference available reserves expanded during 2024. Proceeds from the sale of district parsonages totaled again $1.045 million, and conference investments produced a positive return of $3.341 million. These incremental inflows from property sales and investment returns resulted in a net increase of $3.068 million in available reserves. Now we will turn our attention to the 2025 spending guide and the 2026 proposed budget. Total conference spending in 2025 has been set at the amount of $6.938 million. Conference paid apportionments, see column A there, is said to fund $4.406 million of the total spend in 2025. The difference between the spending target of $6.938 million and the targeted apportionment receipts of $4.406 million is a funding gap of $2.532 million. The sources of the funding the conference will use to fund the gap in 2025 are as follows. Within column B, it's annual funding. Benefits funding is $570,000 and departmental funding is $328,000. Since 2010, the pension reserve has covered administrative costs incurred in managing the pension and group health benefits plans. Annually designated reserves such as Board of Trustees or Sustentation Fund or AACI and We Love All God's Children Fund, also departmental expenses. Within column C are designated reserves totaling $1.015 million earmarked to assist in funding ministries in 2025. Within column D are other funding sources totaling $597,000. Here we have the Emerging Leaders Endowment, the District Superintendent Housing Fund, the Mission Endowment Fund, and the GCFNA grant for the Episcopal Office. They are the sources in that funding there. Finally, we have column E. It reflects 21,000 sourced from available reserves. Available reserves are the unrestricted and non-designated reserves of the conference. As of January 1st, 2025, this balance was $16.3 million. Total conference spending in 2026 has been set in the amount of $6.788 million. Conference paid apportionments will fund $4.395 million of the total spent. Like in 2025, the conference will plan to use reserves and investment funds to close the funding gap of $2.393 million in 2026. In 2026, annual and departmental funding will provide funds totaling $1.020 million, and designated reserves of $928,000 will assist in funding ministries. The District Superintendent Housing Fund, the Mission Endowment Fund, and the GCFNA grant for the Episcopal Office will fund other sources totaling $315,000. And finally, reserves of $130,000 are available for use in 2026. The 2026 budget of $6.78 million represents a 2% reduction from the 2025 spending target of $6.938 million. As we look ahead to 2026 and beyond, it is the intent of CFNA to gradually lessen the financial burden on local churches by decreasing the apportionment percentage allocated to local churches year by year. There will be an ever-increasing reliance on non-apportioned reserves and revenues to support TAC ministries. Sources of non-apportioned revenue will be comprised of grants and partnerships and designated funds and endowments and investment returns and available reserves when necessary. This concludes our report.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to go back for just a moment to the Board of Pensions report that Reverend Justin shared. There was a question. I'm going to read the question. Investment income for 2025 is showing a significant income gain despite the instability in the market for both bonds and equities. Has this been thoroughly vetted? Our Mark Helms is our controller, and he is also here with us. This is a projection for the year. We forecast a 5% return for budgeting purposes. Our Board of Pensions Committee meets regularly. Our investment committee meets regularly with our investment managers, and also without our investment managers. And then Mark and the team is looking at these numbers. Mark, do you want to respond to that question?
Yeah, just everyone just needs to understand that when we're looking at these figures for 25 and 26, these are all projections that we made at the close of 2024. So we're showing actuals through 24 and then projected levels in terms of expenses, income, and then investment returns for 25 and 26. What we use as a expected return is 5%. Obviously, through the first 4 months of the year, we have not yet hit that 5%. We're down probably around 3% year to date. But we still believe that what we're projecting for the year using this 5% rate of return is still good.
Thank you, Mark. We're ready to move to the Commission on Equitable Compensation report, Reverend Curtis Mathis. That report begins on page 183 in the pre-conference journal. Welcome, Curtis.
Well, good afternoon, friends. I'm Reverend Curtis Mathis. I'm the chair, as Robert said, and our entire report is on pages 183 through 194 of the pre-conference journal. And there's really just two things that I'm going to highlight today, one of which is that both of those need approval at conference. But the first one is that we have recommended the minimum salary of all of our levels of ordination and or licensed local folks, all of them be raised by $500 in the month of, or the year of 2026, and then it would remain that same amount for 2027. And then the other thing that we have to have approved is that we have recommended adding two groups of folks that will be eligible for reimbursement or are being paid for their moves, and that would be full deacons and provisional deacons. And that aligns both of these things do with the cabinet recommendations, and the commission has approved those things. And really, that's the short and sweet report I have. So if this concludes that report.
Robert, you're muted.
Thank you. Both of those that Pastor Curtis just talked about is about with full-time clergy in both of those minimum salaries, and also for the clergy relocation policy, adding full-time deacons and provisional deacons to the move policy. And so we'll vote on that at annual conference as well. I'm going to invite Laura Rhodes and John Eshelman. Both Laura and John are lay people, and they are the co-chairs of our group health benefits. Laura, welcome.
Great, thank you. I'm with you today. John was not able to join us, but he will be with us at annual conference. Just as a reminder, the Group Health Benefits Committee that I am co-chair of covers health benefits for clergy, their dependents, and conference lay employees. And I just want to go over some of the plan changes that will be effective both this year and then changes for next year. So if we have those slides. Yeah, and it does start on page 196 of your pre-conference journal. So as a brief recap, I bring you actually really good news. There are no changes for the church and participant contribution rates for 2026. So it will remain at 14% for 26 and 25. We did introduce some new wellness benefits, where it's branded as Wellness Plus. And you can see here on the slide, we have a lot of new wellness options for people. But one of the really nice things is an incentive for some things that we should be doing anyway, but sometimes we get busy and skip over them. So annual physicals and some of our age-appropriate cancer screenings, these will turn into an incentive for you once you do it. And once the claims pass through, you don't even have to apply for it. They should just happen. Again, just helping to remind us to really seek out care, have preventive care, and take care of ourselves. We also have some discounted fitness memberships that are really important for people, and it's at a variety of locations and a variety of levels that can help a lot of people. We have weight loss support, including coaching and nutrition guidance, as well as some health coaching services and disease management programs. So a lot of these have been revamped and revitalized and new again for 2025, and that will continue into 26. I'll skip forward to the next slide, please. Thank you. We do have some recommended changes. And so I'm going to go over this and try to make it clear for you. I know sometimes these numbers all run together. What we are recommending is shifting $14.4 million from the retiree medical reserve to the active group health plan in 2025. And I'll tell you why. As you may recall, we froze the retiree medical plan in January of 2024. And this would cover those eligible early retirees and qualifying spouses, people that are under 65, spouses of existing medical subsidy recipients, and eligible surviving spouses. That was as of January 24. And so this population is actually, as of January of this year, 18 individuals. And so based on that population, we have a very good idea of what the liability is for that, the money that we need to hold in place for them. And that is on the next slide for us. Thanks. Okay, so that post-retirement liability is projected to decline to $8.8 million, because again, we know exactly who that population is. And what we're going to do is ask that we hold 115% of that amount in reserve. So that would be 10.2 million you see on that second bullet there. But the total in reserves right now is 24.5 million. So we have an excess there, and we can better use that excess in the active group health plan. And so we're looking to shift that over. And so again, this would then infuse the active growth health plans reserve and increase that up to 20.5 million. And so that more than $20 million will ensure the Texas Annual Conference can continue to offer clergy and qualifying lay employees a generous and robust self-insured health plan through the end of the decade. Okay, so again, I've walked through some of these numbers. I'm not going to go in depth onto this slide because you can see them. I will mention that the expenses on a per employee basis on that last bullet point did decrease in 24 from the numbers we saw in 23. We don't expect to see that again in 25 and 26. We do expect healthcare costs to go up. We have an aging population and healthcare expenses are going up as well as the cost of things are going up. And so you can skip to the next slide for me. Thank you. Again, in 25 and 26, expenses are projected to exceed receipts by $2 million and $2.5 million, respectively. So this infusion of that $14.4 million from the retiree medical plan would then help cover the costs that we're experiencing in the group health benefits for the active members. And the projected increase in 26 assumes a 7.5% increase in medical claims and that 5% increase in prescription drug claims. Again, we don't expect those costs to go down. All right, and the retiree medical plan forecast, again, we've sort of looked at these numbers, but upon transferring that $14.4 million, the retiree medical reserve would then be at $10.2 million at the close of 2025. And the variance projected between that and the post-retirement medical liability is a surplus of about $1.3 million. Now, again, remember, we want to hold that funded status above what we think we need, but up to maybe 115%. And so in 2026, the plan is actually projected to remain in surplus position where it would have 1.7 million, excess of 1.7 million, which is above that 115%. So it's at 121%. So that's where we'd like to be. And I believe that concludes our report. There's a lot of numbers there, but what we're doing is trying to make sure everybody has the coverage they need and being really good stewards of our dollars by doing that. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Laura, for you and your team and for all the work that you do. I'm going to invite Rochelle Seabrand to join us now. Rochelle is the conference's Safe Sanctuary Consultant, and she's going to present our final report on the Safe Sanctuary Committee. Welcome, Rochelle.
Thank you, Robert. Good afternoon. I'm Rochelle Seabrand, the Conference Safe Sanctuary Consultant and member of the Safe Sanctuary Committee. Our full report and updated policy are on page 221 of the pre-conference journal. We invite you to visit our Safe Sanctuary display table for more details during annual conference. After a year of diligent work, we are excited to announce updates to the conference's Safe Sanctuary policy, which will take effect on July 1st of this year, 2025. Key highlights: the policy will protect our youth, children, vulnerable adults at all conference and district events. Also, beginning this fall, all local churches will need to have their Safe Sanctuary policies submitted with their charge conference reports. We are ecstatic to announce that we will have a new background check company to provide background checks and training. Please be on the lookout for a webinar scheduled to take place this fall. And implementation of this new background check company will begin January 1st of 2026. Our focus in 2026 will be on expanding training and education regarding background checks and training and other Safe Sanctuary commitments. Thank you for your commitment to keeping our children, youth, and vulnerable adults safe. This concludes our reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle, and we'll be approving that report at annual conference as well. The last item to share is really to our retirees, our retired clergy. The Shepherd's Fund is designated for our retired clergy. Please look at that page 232 in your pre-conference journal. It is a ministry to help our retired clergy, their spouses and their surviving spouses with up to $10,000 every 12 months for medical related expenses, dental care, prescription medicine, copay, deductibles, sitters, assistance in many different ways. And so please see that information, and you can also go to the conference website. Ramonica, that ends our full report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, CCR. We're going to ask Janet to say a word of invitation. Right before she does that, I just want to give a quick word about nominations. Just on Wednesday morning, we will vote on the nomination slate. Last year, we began a new quadrennium. We approved a new slate for that 4-year period. We will present that slate with updates where we filled vacancies. And so that will be on Wednesday morning. Janet, why don't you talk to our laity a little bit about what you're asking them to hold on for?
Just a brief invitation to all of our laity who are lay member delegates. Primarily if you're new, but if you would like to be reoriented, you're definitely invited to stay on. We're just going to briefly go over what our role is, what to expect, whom to contact with further questions. And so would be delighted if you'll stay on, and we'll just have a few minutes to go over all of that.
Bishop Harvey, any closing words?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for hanging in there. 244 of you held on for almost 2 hours. So we're privileged to have your time today. Let me just a couple things. This is a lot of information. So don't think that this is like the last time. If you have questions, just reach out to one of the presenters or reach out to me or to Ramonica, and we'll get you to the right person if we don't know the answer to the question. There's a lot of things that we don't have the answers to. Watch for the reminders. You're going to get a lot of reminders. So check your spam, make sure that we don't go to your spam folder, and just read carefully, because I think a lot of the questions you'll be coming up with will be, you'll get a reminder about those things. Don't forget on the regionalization, May 13th, 6 o'clock. That's going to be a place where you can get into a deep dive on this. Hopefully we'll get a couple of answers to the questions that you had. And then I want to share with you just a couple of things. For the ordination service at First Methodist, we will have again an ELCA representative, the Evangelical Lutheran. Bishop Reinhardt will be with us for that service. Remember that we're in full communion with the ELCA, so he will be present, as will Bishop Doyle from the Episcopal Church. Again, we are working toward a full communion relationship with the Episcopalians, so that'll be important. And retired Bishop Ann Shearer will be with us also this year, so we're excited about that. The offerings that you heard about, if you click that QR code, you can start giving now, by the way. Just hit nudge nudge. Or if your church would like to take an offering before you come to conference, and that would be great. You can bring it with you. You can go ahead and send it to the conference through that QR code. But you just know that you can start making contributions now. Robes, because this is always a question people ask. You can wear a black robe or a white robe, clergy, to both the memorial service or the ordination service. If you are a deacon or an elder, you can bring your stoles, a white stole for memorial, a red stole for ordination. So it doesn't matter whether it's a black robe or a white robe, the stole is what's important. Again, I'm just grateful for all of you. Thank you for hanging in here. And this is recorded, I believe. So you can go back and view the recording. If you have a friend that wasn't here, you might want to tell them to go to the recording. But we'll be sharing that with you. I don't know how quickly it can go on the website, but I'm sure it will. So just stay informed. We'll do our best to keep you informed, but be sure and click everything that you can so that you can be better prepared for annual conference. And we'll see you there. We'll see you there. Thank you, Ramonica, for everything that you've done, and the team. It's just exciting to see this coming together.
I agree. We have a great team and we've had a lot of fun planning and been a lot of good hard work. And so we're excited about being with you and being together at annual conference. We're going to ask now Reverend Benson Harris if he'll close us in prayer.
Let's pray together. Holy and faithful God, we give thanks for the time we spent together, for voices lifted in hope and for hearts open to your call. As we go forth from this virtual place, may the seeds planted today take root in our congregations. Strengthen us to lead with humility and to serve with joy, and to listen for your spirit in every conversation and challenge. Empower each lay and clergy leader gathered here to be bearers of grace and agents of renewal. Let us return to our churches inspired not only to sustain what is, but to imagine what could be. Send us now to thrive, not for our own sake, but for the transformation of the world. In the name of Jesus Christ, our true vine and everlasting hope. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, friends, have a good night. Laity, please stay on.